Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your girl Shay Marriott from Rebirth Podcast, and joining me today.
Corey Wilkerson, how y'all doing?
Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. Tonight, we're going to be talking about decolonizing mental health in the Black community.
It's your time to renew, rebuild, and restore. Let's go.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the Rebirth Podcast. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
What's going on, Corey?
I'm good. It's July 1st.
Yeah. You want to introduce yourself to everybody, although they already know you?
Y'all already know me. I was a co-host this 15 minutes ago. But yeah, Corey Wilkerson. I'm back. I feel like I'm home on this couch.
That's right. You are.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah, but we here for a good topic today. I'm glad to be back. So thank you for welcoming me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope
Absolutely.
everybody had a good weekend. How was your weekend?
Weekend was good. Was good. My
You do
son,
anything special?
No, my son came home from school. Like he just gonna creep up.
Oh, wow. Okay. He pulled up on you.
Yeah. I mean, I seen him on the Ring camera. He was already there, but it was cool. Yeah, no, it was good. He came home, hung out with some family. My nephew came down from New York, so we hung out and had a good time. So it was good. It was a good weekend, relaxing.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what's up. That's what's up. I had a good weekend. I actually got a chance to hang out with, shout out to Levante Dorsey. She just did the Girls Academy this weekend, where she had 23 amazing young ladies come out, and it was a great time. She does this once a year, and honestly, it's really a great event that she's doing for these young girls, for the youth, right? And it's for middle school and high schoolers, and they just had a great time. I had a great time greeting the young ladies as they were coming in, and it was so funny because some of them was just like, when is this over?
They got bucked in.
Right, as they're walking in the door, when is this over? But by the time, I would say within the first hour, they were just having a great time, enjoying themselves. So it was a great event.
Awesome.
And yeah, we had a good time. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how you can have like a bad day with Levante.
Levante has such a great
It's
spirit.
just like all the time.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
when does she turn it off?
Yeah, she has.
You
She
know,
don't. That's
it's
who
always
she
like
is.
that.
That's who
Every
she
time
is.
I've seen her pictures,
Yeah.
a post,
Yep.
smiling. But that's cool though.
Yeah,
Shout out
that's
to her
who
for that.
she is.
That's
For
good.
sure.
That's good.
So listen, I'm hearing like this amazing event is happening on July 20th. Have you heard about it?
Yeah, I did hear about it. I did hear about it.
Okay.
All
right.
The
So
Rebirth meetup.
the Rebirth meetup. Have y'all purchased y'all tickets yet?
Yes.
I'm just wondering, like, what's good?
Take 25 seconds and do it right now.
Please do
Yes,
that.
please do
Yes.
that.
Listen, let me tell you guys what you can expect at the Rebirth meetup. Okay. You can expect engaging conversations, right? Connecting with like-minded individuals and just having meaningful discussions. Also, there's going to be networking opportunities. You're being able to meet new people and expand your own professional and social network.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the summer. It's the summer. So
it is the summer.
Nice summer vibe.
Couple of drinks, I'm sure. Flowing.
Couple of drinks.
And the people that are there want to be there.
Exactly.
You ever been somewhere and they don't really want to be there?
Right.
It's horrible. So I mean, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to say to y'all, I don't know if I'm supposed to say it now.
What's that?
For all the females that bought tickets to this thing, go tag somebody on your social media that's a guy.
Please.
And bring them.
That's a good idea.
Right?
Please tag them right now, actually. Tag them right now.
Because what we do know, when a female asks us to do something, most of us will show up. So go ask them.
Facts.
Not your uncle, though.
Well,
maybe your uncle.
Uncles can come.
That's true, because I'm an uncle.
The uncles can come.
That's never mind. Get your uncle. Get your
uncle. For sure. But this is how you can get tickets. Go to rebirthu.com and purchase your ticket. The tickets are only $20, and we only have 10 tickets left, guys. So, I mean, it's important that you go there now. And it's actually at the Chancery in Wilmington, Delaware. So if you haven't been to the Chancery, it's a beautiful place, and it's outside, nice vibes, and we're going to be having some nice music and just great conversation. So you should be there.
Yeah, awesome time. So make sure you go get your tickets. You come out and support. Got something to do. Now you do have something to do. So
absolutely
make it happen.
Absolutely. All right. So tonight we are going to be having really a good topic tonight, and we have an expert, a mental health expert that's going to be joining us. Her name is Lisa Savage. She is a clinical social worker, a licensed clinical social worker, and Lisa's just an amazing person, period. She's also the owner of Center for Child Development, Delaware Center for Counseling and Wellness, and also the founder of Clinicians of Color, which is a directory that has all clinicians from all walks of life all across the world that will be able to help you, and they look like us. They look like us. So
Awesome.
we will be talking about decolonizing mental health in the Black community, but also why it's important to find you a therapist that looks like you. So can you guys please welcome Lisa Savage to the Rebirth? Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Shay and Corey, it's good to see you all.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm
We're
good.
good. Thank you for joining us again.
Absolutely, always a pleasure.
Yes, yes, for sure. So we're going to start out by, could you just, I know I gave you this introduction, but can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and, so they know who we talking to, so they know you the GOAT?
Yeah. So, thank you for that introduction, Shay. Again, my name is Lisa Savage. I am a clinical social worker. I'm licensed in Delaware and in Maryland, where I actually live now, and I no longer reside in Delaware. My practice is still there, my heart's still there, my friends are still there, my
Hmm.
family's there. So I founded the Center for Child Development many, many years ago because part of my platform really is to help make mental health services accessible. So I started the Center for Child Development, which is a school-based and community-based mental health practice. From there, I also started Delaware Center for Counseling and Wellness so that adults could also get mental health services as well. And then I founded Clinicians of Color, which is an online platform that helps to elevate mental health professionals and connect our communities to mental health professionals.
And thank you for all of that, Lisa. Seriously, because you definitely put in the work. Could you share with us as to why did you decide to become a therapist in the first place?
That's always an interesting and hard question for me to answer, Shay, because there's a variety of reasons why I chose to become a therapist. I didn't know that when I entered into undergrad. I was just like, I like to help people, like we all say, but then I realized that there were deeper parts of myself that I wanted to understand. And that really was what led me down the road to becoming a therapist. Um, and I, again, had no idea what that would all ultimately look like, but I'm very happy that I chose this path. I can't imagine doing anything else. Um, and I feel like there are more people that look like me and you who are coming into the field. And I'm glad that there are because our people need to see people who look like me and you.
Right, absolutely. It's so important. We really try to stress that. And through your introduction, I was also saying that you were the founder of Clinicians of Color.org. So I would like for you to talk a little bit about that as well, because I think it's so
Yeah.
important that people are familiar with this directory.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that too, because it is important. We started Clinicians of Color Directory right after George Floyd was murdered because we knew our communities were hurting. But what we were also hearing in various communities is that people couldn't find a mental health professional who understood their cultural and their racial background. So my co-founder Kim and I said, let's just create a directory. Let's get the word out. Let's let people know that there are Black and Brown mental health professionals across the world who do this work. And so we started that in 2020 during the pandemic. And it's grown tremendously in that time. But we also do other things like we help to educate therapists, we provide training. We started Clinicians of Color because we were tired of dealing with the racism in other mental health groups. So
Right.
we were also tired of being overlooked and not considered. So I was like, I don't need to try to fit in. I'm going to create my own platform, and that's how Clinicians of Color was born.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's such a great platform.
Awesome.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
So
Thank
thanks
you.
for that. And I think that's important, right? So,
Hmm.
as we kind of think about the topic that we're talking about tonight, decolonizing therapy or
Hmm.
in mental health in the Black community. Can you expand
Hmm.
on what that means for you and why
Yeah.
that's so important for us?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Corey. So, what I mean by decolonizing mental health is I mean kind of stripping away some of the things that we were taught in school, looking at things not from a medical model, meaning looking at people as diagnoses, but looking at the environments that people are in and assessing them from that perspective. So racism is an ongoing concern. It's not gotten better, or maybe it's transformed. It's still there, but it's not like it was in the 60s, but it's still ever present. And I just mentioned the whole killing of George Floyd, which really kind of set things in motion for
Mm-hmm.
Black and Brown people to rally behind making some changes. And so, as a mental health professional, what I'd like to see those of us who are people of indigenous cultures is to reclaim our culture, is to say to ourselves, we have healing methods that we use that are just as effective. And because they have not been, quote unquote, evidence proven, they're still effective. They still create healing. And so, because a lot of our practices either were frowned upon or we weren't able to practice or stolen, because a lot of our practices were stolen, I want us to reclaim those practices. I want us to reclaim the pieces of our history that we know are important, that we know can be beneficial to our communities. So that's what I mean by decolonization. It's a reclaiming of what was originally ours in the first place.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So are there specific practices that you want to mention that we have that we we're reclaiming now in our
Yeah.
communities that we, would
Yeah.
be good? Okay.
So I think spirituality is a big one. Um,
Mhm.
Probably, Shay, when you were in grad school, certainly when I was in grad school, talking about spirituality was not encouraged. It was something that we were educated to not talk about, not discuss religion or
Right.
spirituality. But for the Black community, spirituality and religion and church is an important part of our healing process. And so
Yes.
when Black people go to church on Sunday and they're getting happy and they're feeling the spirit, that's part of the healing process for them. And so the majority population would look at that as, oh, that's so strange, that's so weird. But we know
Mhm.
the strength and the power that our people get from going to
Yeah.
church and being able to release the things that they have carried the entire week. Again, I mentioned not looking at people as being a diagnosis, but really looking at what has happened in this person's life that has caused them to be depressed or caused them to be anxious. So I'm not looking at, for example, a person who might have PTSD. That's not what I'm looking at. I'm looking at what are the conditions in this person's life, in their environment, in their community, in their family that have gotten them to the point of having symptoms that look like post traumatic stress. Typically,
Right.
people are just trying to survive. And so, whether or not they're trying to survive in healthy ways or not, that's really what it's about. And so, if we can help people to understand you're not a diagnosis, you're not some
Mhm.
pathology, you're a human being who's trying to survive. Let's teach you how to do this in some healthier ways. Let's help you to cope. Meditation, mindfulness, these are all indigenous
Mhm.
practices. Lighting
Right.
incense, these are all
Right.
part of the practices that a lot of indigenous cultures and people have done for years.
Yeah.
They're medicine people, like in the Native American culture, they're medicine
Mhm.
people that people in the community go to seek healing. And it's the same thing for African cultures as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like
Mm-hmm.
just as you kind of talked, right? And I'm gonna be a little off kilter when I say this, right? Like a lot of those things that you kind of talked about seem to be generational based, right? But I think some of these things that we're talking about therapy, we all know that our younger folks need it more than ever, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
think about George Floyd, you think about this is probably the first time that they've seen it in front of them consistently, right? You
Mhm.
think about what's going on just in the in the election, right? Some of these folks, my son is 18, so he's voting for the first time, right? And you just look at that debate, like 50 million people tuned into debate. But when he said black job, I think social media went on fire. Like, what is a black job? Right? Or what is they steal a black job? What is that? Right? So we are triggered in a very different way. And how do we show up? And I don't know, right? Maybe they are. Sage, and they talk about lighting sage and all that
right. That's part of it.
But I think that is that wide casted over our youth. So I guess my question really is, how do we make sure that we're grabbing the youth and bringing them up? Because I believe that while we're still an advocate for therapy and some of the things, they will be the ones that really drive this thing forward. And I do believe they're doing it now. The therapist is like their best friend, and I got a therapist, I got a therapist. But how are we able to continue to show them not to just be reactive with their issues or their questions or their pain, but how can we get them into therapy and making sure that this is something that they're leading in the right way?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question, Corey, because I was talking about this last night to someone. So I think that it takes a community approach to helping our youth. Therapy, I think, is extremely important. I think it's paramount that our kids have access to therapy. But I also think it's important that our kids have access to community as well. And by community, I mean people on your block, in your neighborhood, who are looking out for you, who care about you, who will ask you how you're doing, who will get you back on the right track if you get off that track. So when I was growing up in West Philadelphia, there were these guys that were called the corner boys. They were always the guys that kind of stand on the corner. And they played a very important role. If they saw a young kid walking down the street and it was school time, they'd be like, hey, aren't you supposed to be someplace? So they were there's been a lot of studies done about the corner boys too. But I think they played an important role in keeping our kids safe when they would go astray. I feel like mental health professionals, again, I think we play a really important role, but I also feel like we have to give some of that power up to the community. And so peer group, peer led support groups, that kind of thing. There's always the woman on the block that kind of knows everything, right? If you live in the city, there's always that one woman who's looking out her window and knowing everything. But we need to engage these people in the healing process again. We've moved so far away from that for various reasons. We've moved really far from that, being able to tap into those community resources. This is what I do. I live here in Baltimore, which is a very impoverished city. It's predominantly Black. I think it's like 70% Black in Baltimore at this point. So we have these kids on the corner that they call squeegee kids. So they're the kids that clean your car windshield when you're stopped at the light. And oh boy, these folks be talking about them on Next Door Neighbor and in the Facebook groups. And so I literally, stand up for these kids. I defend these kids because these kids are trying to survive. I'm not saying they always make the right choices, but what I am saying is they need nurturance from those people who look like me. So every time I see these boys in the corner, I'm like, hey, yo, what's up? How y'all doing today? And I never carry cash anymore, but I will always have a stash of cash, like a couple of dollars in my car. Yeah. I don't let them wash my window. It's all good. Here, you take care of yourself. You going to school today? Did you eat today? What time are you going to get off this corner? We need people to show up in that kind of way. We can't be afraid of our kids. A lot of people will be like, no, I'm afraid of them. No, I'm not going to engage with them. We have to be willing to step outside of our own comfort zones and not be afraid of kids that look like me and you, right?
Yeah.
If a little Black kid is walking down the street, down my street, there's a school down the street from me. It's a cute little elementary school. Every time I see him, if I'm out on the street, I'll be like, hey, you are so beautiful. Did you have a good day at school today? your hair is just absolutely beautiful. Your skin is beautiful. Just speaking that into the kids, right?
Mhm.
They don't know who I am from Adam. I'm a safe person because I'm not asking them, to come into my house or take something from me, but I am affirming them with my positive
Yeah.
words because the chances are these kids have not been affirmed or heard that their skin is pretty or
Mhm.
their hair is beautiful or that their eyes, when I say you have the most beautiful brown eyes, those kids go, what? Huh? Because they're not used to hearing it, right? They're not used to people
Right.
saying that your dark brown
No.
eyes are beautiful. But that's what I
Not even
do.
from their own families.
Yeah.
Exactly, Shay. Because
Yeah.
sometimes it's the opposite of what they're hearing from their
Mhm.
families. So that's like what I do a little bit in my community is I'm constantly looking for opportunities to say, "How you doing?" Or I see a kid on the corner who's washing windows. I'll give him a few bucks. I have this
Mhm.
one kid that calls me Ma. He's like, "Hey Ma, what's up?" I don't even know his name. I have no idea what his name is. But I absolutely, he will always tell me, "I love you, Ma," and I'll say, "I love you too." I don't know the kid's name, but you don't have to.
Aw.
You're forming connections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
this
That's
is
so important,
decolonization.
Lisa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Lisa, what are some of the challenges that we face in a Black community with accessing mental health
Woo, girl.
services? Yeah.
So it is so hard for people to find mental health professionals, Shay. It is so
Mhm.
hard. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier today, and she's looking for a therapist for her husband. He has called therapists, and they have not called him back, primarily because the therapist is probably booked and overwhelmed. I still believe
Mhm.
we have a responsibility as professionals to get at least call people back, right?
For
So
sure.
those of us who are doing the work, who are Black and brown, the demand for our services is off the hook because our people are readily accepting therapy, and that's what we want. And like Corey said, younger kids, therapy is not stigmatizing to them. Like they love going to therapy and they talk about it. That is not the issue for them at all.
Mhm.
So those of us who are Black, most of the time we're so booked that we don't have space to take on new clients. And Black and brown providers only make up 4% of all mental health professionals in this country.
Wow.
4%.
Still.
So, yes, still. So, if you have somebody who's seeking services and they're calling around and they're calling around, they either can't find a therapist who accepts their insurance,
Mhm.
has availability,
Mhm.
or calls them back. After a while, they're going to give up. They're going to give up.
Yeah.
Again, part of the reason why we created the directory for clinicians of color, but I mean, obviously, not everybody knows that we exist. So that's, I think, a huge issue is just really accessibility.
I do have a question to follow up on that too, right? So I know that we are readily looking for folks to support us when it comes to a therapy standpoint. Now, I guess my question would be, I'm curious, are we looking for therapists or are we looking for us as therapists, right? So if you find a therapist but they don't look like you, are you denying that support? Are you denying that help because you're looking for somebody that looks like you and you can't go find that, right? So then you're
Yeah.
waiting for the 4% where the
Hmm.
other 90% may exist, but you don't have that
Hmm.
trust or you don't feel like they can support you. So what
Yeah.
would you say to that?
Yeah. So what I would say to that is find somebody who gets you, right? And they don't have to be the
Mhm.
same race, same color, same culture. Find somebody who gets you. In school, we were always taught about being culturally competent. I would argue that there is no such thing as being culturally competent. Like you can't
Mhm.
take a course and understand all of the nuances of Black culture.
Yep.
It's a lived experience. It's a lived experience.
Mhm.
And so, what I instruct or encourage white mental health professionals to do is to be culturally open and curious.
Mhm.
So, don't go into working with somebody who's a different culture, whether or not they're Black or Asian or Spanish. You go into it being curious and open because you're going to learn more. You're going to learn more. Even in the Black communities, and I say communities because it's no one single Black community, there are different cultures within the Black communities. So to make the assumption that you took a course and now you're culturally competent really is a false narrative. So it is possible to find therapists who get you, even though they might not look like you. Some of us believe that we really want to see somebody who looks like us, who has a shared lived experience. And I think that's fine. There are people out there who could certainly help you, even if they don't come from the same background. But ask the tough questions of them. How many other Black people have you worked with? Where do you live? If I was
Mhm.
going to see a therapist, I would be asking a therapist, who are you voting for? Because that's important. That's
Mhm.
part of my lived experiences, right? So I would want to ask those questions. If I encountered a therapist who doesn't want to answer those questions, that's not the person for me. Because my
Right.
therapy is always going to be political. It's always going to be political because the politics, what's going on in our country, is absolutely
Mhm.
affecting my people. So you can ask the
Mhm.
tough questions and expect to have an answer. Um, a part of the decolonized approach is therapists not presenting themselves to be these blank slates. Like
Mhm.
we should be emotionally accessible to our clients and willing to answer questions while maintaining boundaries, because that's important. But we need to be emotionally available and accessible to our clients. And there's no such thing as
Yeah.
being a blank slate. Yeah, that's not
Yeah.
human. That's not authentic.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just like somebody saying, "Well, I don't see color." Right?
Thank you,
I
Shay.
mean,
You
Thank you,
don't see
you
me.
Shay.
yeah, you don't yeah,
Exactly.
you don't see me.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that would send me
So,
out the door. If a therapist said to me, "I
right,
don't see color,"
exactly. I'd be like,
yikes.
"All
I'd
right,
be like,
thank you for your
"Okay,
time."
exactly. Here's my copay."
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, Corey, just to add to that with what Lisa was saying, I do think it's important to find a therapist that looks like you.
Mhm.
Because like Lisa was saying, they don't teach it in grad school. And I went to I went to a PWI, right? Now my son goes to Del State. Now I was helping him with his psychology class, and I had no idea. Like everybody that they talked about at Del State were all Black.
Mm.
Well, PWI, I didn't study nobody Black
Yep.
in psychology,
Yep.
right?
Uh,
Yep.
So I was like so confused, right? So I think it's important. We have to unlearn some of the things that we were taught and relearn some things, even as therapists. That's why it's so important to take
Yep.
these continuing education courses and the things that you may have missed out on, to educate
Mhm.
yourself about it. But it is
Mhm.
important to have a therapist that looks like you.
Mhm.
Because I don't feel that someone that is the opposite could understand if I came in and said that I was at work today and I have locks and someone had an issue with
Mhm.
me wearing
Mhm.
locks.
mhm.
I don't
Mhm.
think if you are not
Mhm.
in the same, if you can't relate to that, how can you even understand why I'm so
Mhm.
angry about it?
Yeah, yeah,
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that's very important. But even when it comes down to discipline, right, Lisa? So we may our discipline looks different than some other groups, right? So
Yep.
you may have a
Absolutely.
therapist that will call child protective service on you for something that comes with your culture,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now it's okay to explain that, hey, we don't do that here in the United States. Like that, think about the African culture, right? They have a lot of it's very different. So there may be some things that a child may experience in the African community that even us as African Americans we may not even experience, right? So
Right.
it's important to be able to understand those different things and be able to help the client and not find things to want to call
Yeah,
services on them for, but
yeah,
more so
Yeah.
help them.
yeah. And I think you called
Yeah.
it out too, Lisa, when you said it's you have to live our culture, right? It's a lived
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
experience, right? You're not
Yeah.
gonna get it in a course, or you're not gonna get it online
No.
or anything
No.
like that. It's a lived experience.
Yeah.
I will say though, I've been through a couple of therapist. And I remember one time I went to this lady, and she was an older white lady. And I remember walking in her office, and my first thought was like, "What the hell is she gonna be able to say to me?" Right? But I will tell you, she was probably one of my favorite.
Okay.
Right?
Wow.
And we sat
Okay.
there, and the thing was, she got me to walk in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing she
Mm.
ever did was me, she said, "I'm gonna pray with you before we start."
Wow.
Right?
Okay. Okay.
And
Yeah, that's different.
inside of our
Mhm.
conversation, she just listened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, she said, "Now I'm gonna ask you to pray us out." Right?
Oh wow.
And it was a good dynamic and a good conversation. And she was so curious, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
sometimes curiosity is the thing that we want. We
Mhm.
want
Mhm.
we want you to care about what I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
She didn't really have her notepad out. She wasn't checking the time and
Mhm.
anything like that.
Mhm.
So it was a good experience. But I do 100% agree with there's something to understanding our culture. I remember Denzel
Yeah.
Washington said, "Anybody can write Goodfellas,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't know what it smells like when you put a hot comb through her hair on a Sunday
There
morning."
you go.
Mm-hmm.
There you
That's
go.
culture,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So
There you go.
it's definitely different. So you have
Mhm.
to appreciate both. But at the end of the day, there's something about when we talk about the lived experience of us,
Mm-hmm.
and that
Yeah.
matters for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
does. It does. I mean, the number of questions that I'm sure Shay and myself have had about our hair. I mean,
Yeah.
it's exhausting. It is exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
Or the stares
Can
or
I
the
touch it?
looks.
Really, that's
Yes.
crazy.
Can I touch it?
Y-
They
How
say
do
the
you do
same
Yeah,
thing
it
to
that?
me.
is.
I'll be like, nah.
It's exhausting. It really is exhausting. Like, I try
Mm-hmm.
to tell people black people have been in this country for as long as white people have. Y'all don't know about black
Mm-hmm.
hair yet? Come on now. Come on now.
Yeah.
Is it that
Yeah.
you haven't exposed yourself to black people, or what is this about? I don't want to be in a position where they're othering me. You're
Mm-hmm.
an other person.
Right.
Because again, my ancestors have been in this country for hundreds and hundreds of years, working
Mm-hmm.
for your ancestors, and um, you mean to tell me that it's you? We are in 2024, and you don't know the nuances of black hair? I know all about
Mm-hmm.
white hair. I know all about white hair. Okay,
Right.
um,
Right.
so people who take the time to learn and to understand without othering you or without making you feel like you are, a sideshow, maybe they can get it. I personally would want to see somebody of color, a black person, a Latino person, but I really want to see somebody who has lived the experiences. I don't have to code switch. I don't have
Mm-hmm.
to I can show up the way that I am. If I got up in the morning and I haven't done my hair and I have therapy, I don't want somebody to be like, what's going on? Or what's wrong with your hair?
Right.
I want somebody who
Right.
just understands that, like, oh, she just didn't put
Yeah.
any gel in her hair today or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
so those things are important to me. There's just some things that I don't want to take the time to have to understand, explain. I want you to understand.
Right. Try to explain. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree.
yeah.
I want to go back to something that you said, but before I do that, I just want to acknowledge some of our listeners. Thank you guys for tuning in. Nikki Bett, Marilyn Goodman. Thank you, Eileen Williams. Thank you for tuning in. If you guys have any questions for our guest tonight, please put it in the chat. Lisa Savage, she's a licensed clinical social worker, and she definitely will have an answer for you. I'm pretty sure that she would.
I'll
So if you
try.
have any questions, that's right. If you have any questions, this is the time to put it in the chat, and make sure you like, share, and tag someone that needs to be a part of this conversation. Corey, I want to go back to something that you said because I was a little surprised, and I don't want to take anything from your experience that
Yeah,
you had with this therapist,
yeah,
but I think this is, although you had a great experience,
yeah.
but my question to you was, did you pick her because you said that she started the session off with praying with you? Was she a Christian therapist? And
She
did you
was.
know that?
I didn't know.
You didn't know
I
that.
didn't know. I
But
didn't even pick her. So,
okay.
well, I picked her, but I didn't see her picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I just read reviews about her, right?
Okay.
And when I went, I just walked into the office. Matter of fact, it
Mm-hmm.
was in a church.
Okay.
right?
Okay. So that
Oh,
explains it.
okay.
It was
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
at a church.
Yeah.
So I walked in, but it wasn't no church that I've ever grown up in,
Okay.
right? So like I walked in and I walked down this hallway and all these people. I'm like, what
Mhm.
the hell? I
Yeah.
walked in the door and I was like, oh,
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
That makes sense
Yeah,
now.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
what it
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
Exactly.
So like,
It does.
Because
yeah.
It
I'm
does.
like, that's a no-no.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It was at a church, but I
That is
didn't
a
know. But I
yeah.
didn't know it was.
Exactly.
I guess when they found out the office was at a church, I'm like, okay, like what's this gonna
Right.
be like, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was a good experience.
Okay.
It was good. We had a good time.
Right,
Yeah, we had a
right.
good time.
Nice.
Okay, so that's
Nice.
good. So that makes it
Yeah.
a little bit more understandable.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to explain to those that are listening why I question that because as a therapist, we cannot assume what you serve, what you believe
Yep.
in,
Yep.
anything like that. So I'm not
Mhm.
supposed to put my religious beliefs or anything like
Mhm.
that onto you, right? Now,
Yep.
if you bring up God,
Hmm.
then that gives me, more of permission to be able to,
Mhm.
say something like that or or
Yeah.
or talk like that. But I can't just off the bat just say I like to pray with you when you come in,
Right.
because I've had clients
Right.
that were atheists that didn't believe,
Right.
in God or anything like that. So
Mhm.
She must have felt some type
that's
of
Mhm.
why
way.
I had to that's why I asked.
Devil's in her.
She said, let me pray this
Let me
out of
pray,
you first.
pray this off. Jeez, off this went up.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah, very
Lisa,
good
I know
point.
you shared right, yeah. Lisa, I know you shared with us about you shared some strategies about decolonizing, right? But can we talk a little bit more about practical steps that can be taken to decolonize mental health practices?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think as mental health professional, those of us who are really invested in doing this work, I think we have to do some long, hard self-examinations and ask ourselves, is the way that we're practicing therapy, um, is that based on how what colonization looks like? Is it based on white principles? Is it based on the principles that white men, because typically it has been white men, have taught us? And can we begin to question, does this make sense for my clientele? Does this make sense for my communities? So really doing a deep dive within ourselves and asking, like, this doesn't feel authentic to me, but I was taught it. How can you be more authentic with who you are? Obviously, we still have a code of ethics. We still have boundaries that we have to respect because that's really important to keep a client safe. But things like, for example, Shay, I'm sure this is part of your schooling as well. We were taught you don't give a client a hug. Oh no, you do
Right.
not touch a client. In the Black culture, come on now. If a
I know.
grandmom, older woman is reaching out to give me a hug, you think I'm gonna push her back and tell her, "Oh
Right.
no, Miss So and So, you can't give me a hug"? Absolutely
Right.
not. I have a
Mhm.
client who ends every single phone call with, "I love you, babe."
Mhm.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
Do you think I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell her, "Oh, that's inappropriate"? No, I'm not gonna say that to her.
Right.
No, I'm not.
Right.
Um, we were also taught don't take gifts from clients, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so do you think that if a black woman came into my office and gave me a box of candy, say for example, I'm going to say, oh, no, I
Mhm.
can't accept that from you. My
Mhm.
clients aren't bringing me diamond rings, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
that would be
Taking me
one
on
thing.
trips. Well,
Exactly.
some of
But
'em.
if they give
They
me
might
some kind
try.
of, well, that's true. But if they want to show me a gesture of appreciation, I'm
Yeah.
not going to say no. I'm not doing that. I have, well, you and I both work, we practice in Delaware. Delaware is very small.
Mhm.
You go to Christiana Mall, you're going to run into a client. You're going to, I,
Absolutely.
my clients know I will 120,000% respect their confidentiality. But if they come
Mhm.
running over to me, I'm not going to act like I don't know them. I'm not going to
Right.
turn my head. I'm going to
Yeah.
greet them hello and I'm going to keep it moving. So
Mhm.
that's my process of decolonization. When I worked in the schools, Shay, how many times when you worked in the elementary schools, those kids meet you,
Right.
run up to you, and give you a big old hug?
Exactly.
That was the
Exactly.
way that it
Yeah.
was. I
Yeah.
wasn't about to push them away. I was
Yeah.
not, and I still wouldn't push them away.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
these are the things that I think we have to begin to examine. When I think about diagnosing people too, the majority of people who have the diagnosis of conduct disorder or oppositional defiant disorder are young Black boys. And I'm tired of
Mhm.
it. I'm tired
Mhm.
of it because what
Mhm.
people are missing, what mental health professionals are missing, is the trauma that's underneath all of that behavior.
Right.
And
Right.
so I'm challenging people when they slap a label on a kid and they call a kid ADHD or ODD. Oh,
Mhm.
and wait a second. Have you done a complete trauma assessment? Because trauma can
Right.
often look like bad behavior in children.
Right. Mhm.
And so, again, another way of decolonizing rather than trying to fit people into this box from the DSM 5, let's expand our view and consider what else might be going on with this child. If I didn't have to diagnose people to get paid from insurance companies, I would not. I
Right.
wouldn't. But
Exactly.
because I got to play this whole thing,
Yeah.
in the medical model, I got to give my diagnosis,
Yeah,
which to
I do
me
have
it
a
doesn't really mean a whole lot because I'm not dealing with the diagnosis. I'm dealing with the human
Mhm.
being,
Mhm.
right? So those are the things that I think as Black and Brown mental health professionals we have to do is we have to really start examining ourselves. We have to ask people about their culture. Like, what do y'all do
Mhm.
when this happens in a family? How do y'all manage stress as a family? I think the other thing that happens too in a colonialized approach to mental health is we see people as individuals as a colonial approach. As a decolonized approach, we have to look at people in terms of who is their family, who's their community,
Right.
where do they go for
Right.
healing, how do they find
Right.
healing. That's what we have to do.
Yeah.
And we have to
And
help people to
safety.
understand. And safety. There you go.
And
And
safety.
safety.
Yep.
And
Yep.
safety. Because that's
Yeah.
important as well,
It's
Shay.
important.
That's
It's
important.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
You
a
think about some of
decolonized,
the kids in Philly, especially right now, everything that's going on in Philly, right? They're
yeah,
a lot of their safety places or spaces might be a community center,
exactly.
where they can go
That's
and
right.
get off the streets because even
Yep.
going home might not be safe for them.
That's right. And so in Baltimore, they did start this program. It's only in the summertime, but they have a curfew. And if a kid is caught out after curfew, they don't arrest them. They take them to a community center and assess what else this
Mhm.
kid needs. Because if that
Mm.
kid's out and it's 11, 12 o'clock at night, where are the parents? Right?
Right.
Who's supervising this kid? So I like that approach. It supposedly was successful last year, was the first year we did it. So this is the second year. We'll see how it goes. But I do kind of like that approach because it's not looking at these kids as you're a criminal. So they're not arresting them. They're
Mhm.
taking them to
Mhm.
a community center, doing an assessment and getting them connected with services.
yeah, that's awesome. I was gonna say
Yeah.
too. I would imagine those that I've never heard of that program, but does that happen inside of the inner city neighborhoods that you usually see that particular type of support? 'Cause I haven't heard of that in
Well,
Delaware.
yeah, I haven't heard of it in Delaware either, Corey. I mean, I think the point at which Baltimore implemented it was because crime was really soaring. Like we had
Hmm.
a lot of carjackings in Baltimore, and it was all young kids, like 12,
Hmm.
13 years old. They were out there carjacking. And so, there's a lot of pressure put on our city government to do something. And so our mayor was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And so far it seems to be working. So I think when you have a strategy for dealing with kids who may be disenfranchised or come from families where the families are too preoccupied with other things, like, I mean, parents could be on substance abuse, parents could be working, or overwhelmed with their own mental health issues. I like this approach because again, it decriminalizes kids and it gives them the help
Mhm.
that they need. So, because if you immediately criminalize a kid, that kid's future is going to look very, very bleak. But if you look at the strengths of a kid and you provide them with resources, that kid stands a better chance of having a more successful future then automatically saying, "Yep, you're a criminal. You're going to go to jail, and we're just
Mhm.
going to continue to warehouse you for the rest of your life." Not a cool approach to working with kids and really trying to rehab kids, and get them out of some of these negative cycles.
Yeah.
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 So you mentioned a little bit about community support already, but how can
Mhm.
we as a community, as a Black community, support each other's mental health moving forward?
I think we have to first see it as our responsibility. Like,
Mhm.
you're my sister, you're my brother. I'm here for you. What do you need? How can I support you? I think we have to get out in the community a little bit more. So this
Mhm.
weekend, I had this big potluck dinner in the park from my neighborhood that I did by myself.
What? You ain't tell me about
Yes,
that?
I did, okay? And
Oh, that's awesome, Lisa.
it was so nice. It was so nice. And I got to
Nice.
meet a lot of my neighbors. I got to meet some
Okay.
of the elderly Black women in the neighborhood. And one of them texted me today. She's like, "You want to get together?" I was like, "I sure do." So
That's
doing things
good.
like that, and it was like low stress because everybody brought something. I
Uh-huh.
coordinated getting a bouncy house for the kids and a pony for the kids.
Oh
Um,
my
it
goodness.
was so nice. It was really, really nice, and people loved it. I think we had over 100 people come. We had a lot of people show up.
Wow.
So doing
I
things
love
like that,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was nice. It was really nice. So getting out, being seen, getting to know your
Mhm.
neighbors, being part of your community, being active. Those are all things that I think that we can do to support each other. If I know that Miss So and So across the way is going through a hard time, I might be like, "Come on, let's go get some coffee or something." And I don't have to
Right.
do any therapy. I can just be there with her. You know what I'm saying? Like, I
Yeah.
suspect the
Yeah.
woman who texted me this morning, I suspect she really wants to talk. She is
Mhm.
retired. She's alone in her house. She's had a lot of issues with her house. And I think she just wants to talk. So it
Yeah.
was so cute. She was like, "Can I have your cell phone number? But I don't know how to put it in my phone." I was like, "I got you. I got you." Um, but in my neighborhood, and I love my neighborhood. I really love my neighborhood a lot. Um, I have become friends with, like, I have two friends down the street. They're like 22 years old, right?
Oh, wow.
So I have generational friendships in my
Yes.
neighborhood.
Yes. I
So
love
I'll
that
be like,
though.
I cooked today. I was like, "Listen, Jesse, I got some food. You and Eric want some?" She was like, "Oh yeah, Miss Lisa." Came down, I gave them food. The other
Aw.
two friends down the street, because we belong to the pool. "Y'all want to go to the pool today? Come on, I'm gonna take y'all to the pool." So actively engaging with people,
Yeah.
getting out in the community, getting
Yeah.
to know people, and just kind of being a presence in your community, I think is
Mhm.
really important. Yeah, like we
Yeah.
sit on the stoop here in Baltimore too. Like people will sit on their stoops.
Right.
What led me to this neighborhood in particular was when Michael and I were looking. We were walking the streets, and this neighborhood is absolutely beautiful. And neighbors were sitting out, and they were having wine, and they invited us. We weren't even living in the neighborhood. They were like, "Hey, come on over," and gave us the history of the neighborhood and some of the houses, and we had wine. And we were
Right.
sold at that point. That was like, building community. It really was
Yeah.
meaningful to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so important because just doing something like that has has helped someone that has had feelings of loneliness that could have moved into a state of depression, but
Yeah,
because you took
yeah,
time to talk to them, engage with them, that
yeah,
pulls them out of that, right? Because
yeah,
sometimes it's just
yes,
I'm just lonely. I just want someone to talk to, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
So, it's
yeah.
important.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
an 82-year-old woman who lives diagonal to me. She just moved into the neighborhood. She moved back from Arizona, and she is a yogi. She's an 82-year-old yogi.
Wow.
So I
Okay.
did an interview with her, and she did some downward dog poses
I was about to
that
say that.
she was like she was like, "Lisa, I don't go a day without a downward dog pose." She's an older Jewish woman, and
Wow.
she was teaching me about, the Baltimore history, because at one point Baltimore, there was a lot of Jewish families living here. And so
Mhm.
she taught me about the Jewish history. She was very active in politics, very fascinating woman, but she doesn't have any family close by. So I can literally walk to her apartment from where I live, and she has a beautiful garden where she's living in a high rise. She's got a beautiful garden, and she's trying to teach the other seniors over there yoga. I
Yeah.
think it's so cool.
Yeah. It is cool. It really
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
yeah.
I believe be the change that you want to see,
For sure.
right? That's
Oh,
important. Corey, you have
absolutely.
any other questions?
I did, but
You
yeah,
lost it?
no, I got it.
Oh,
I was
okay.
looking at my time, but just to kind of piggyback on your question, what can we do to help our community? I think one of the things I've been challenged with just raising two kids is like protection versus being vulnerable and telling your story as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
right? And sometimes, so for me, like
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I don't want to put too much on my kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let them be kids,
Hmm.
right? But there's
Hmm.
power in telling the things that you've been through so they can
Hmm.
understand that as they kind of grow up and go through things, they see you as human.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes for us, we either go one way totally, we tell them too much, and they become
Hmm.
young adults at a young age where they don't
Mm-hmm.
feel like they
Hmm.
can just be kids,
Right.
as opposed
Right.
to we don't prepare them and they don't humanize us as parents,
Hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So they go
Hmm.
through, they may isolate themselves. Well, I can't talk to dad or I can't talk to mom
Right.
because they have no idea. Well, I
Hmm.
know a lot about what you're
Right.
talking
Right.
about. So what
Hmm.
advice would you give? What's the
Yeah.
balance inside of that? Whether
Yeah.
we're
Great
kids or
question.
we're aunties or uncles and things like that.
Yeah. I think you share with them based on where they are in their stage of development, right? So you made a good point. Like, you don't want to burden your kid with what your problems are, because when adults tell kids, and I'm not talking about people over 18, but when you're talking about kids, when you tell a kid too much, that kid then feels responsible for you as the parent. So you share with them where they are developmentally. And you're right, kids often think that, your parents were born yesterday, they haven't experienced things. So as they go through life and they begin to experience things, I think you can certainly share bits and pieces of what you've been through. I think at the end of the day, what's important is that your child knows that you're still there for them, that you survived whatever you endured in life, and they need to know how you survived whatever it was you endured, because you want to empower them. Sometimes the weight and the burden of parents' stories can burden a kid. You want to be able to empower the kid, and you also want to tell your child, I survived, and this is how I survived, and that's why I know you can survive this as well. So, it's a
Mm-hmm.
delicate balance. It's knowing your child. Um, it's also knowing that there's some things that at this point in this child's life, they're not ready, or it would not be appropriate to share that with a kid. So that's the balance, Corey. Because again, your story can be a learning experience from your kid, but you just don't want it to be a burden to them.
For sure. For sure. Thank you for
Yeah.
Yeah,
that.
That was good. Look
yeah.
at you getting some free therapy.
Slide it in, real time,
It's all good.
Lisa, this has been a great conversation as
Thank
always.
you.
You come with a wealth of knowledge and information, and
Thank you,
as
Shay.
we are wrapping up tonight's conversation, um, my last question to you is: what changes would you like to see in how mental health care is provided to Black communities?
Love it. So, what I would like to see, Shay, I think you already know where I'm going with this. I want people who, um, I, the whole, you got to be licensed to do this, you got to be licensed to do
Right,
that. I want to do
right.
away with that, because I
Yeah.
know that people who are amazing healers can't
Mhm.
practice their craft because of some bureaucratic stuff. And
Mhm.
so I would like us to challenge some of those systems that keep people like me and you out on the outside.
Absolutely.
And so
Mhm.
I'm taking on that struggle right now, because there's definitely racism and there's gatekeeping within our professions that keep
For
Black and
sure.
brown healers out
Mhm.
of our communities from being able to do the important work that we know we can do, even if we don't have the quote unquote credentials or the quote unquote education. You and I
Yeah.
have bought into the education piece, and we're using it to better our communities. But there are other people who have taken a different path, who are still healers. Still
Yeah,
healers.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you
So
for
that's my
that. I mean,
thing.
this was
Yeah.
great information. Lisa, if people want to know more about you, your services, what you do,
Hmm.
um, can you give us your information so people can, make sure they can reach out to you?
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
I just
Yeah, I
want to
think
read
the easiest.
this comment
Go
real
ahead.
quick,
Yeah,
Lisa.
absolutely. Yeah.
Nikki says it's not. One second. Thank you. Nikki said, it's not all the time what you say to them, but how. My belief is that it will help them when they need it. That was the question
Hmm.
that you had
Of
about,
course.
about the kids.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
Nikki also said, yes, I would love to challenge it too. Thank you, Nikki. Nikki wants to get behind it. So thank you for that. We appreciate that. And your
Yep.
voice matters. It
Sure
matters. So
does.
Lisa, go ahead. Please give
Sure
them your
does.
information of how
Yes,
people
I'm going to give
can
you
reach
the
out or
easiest
follow.
email address to remember, Lisa at cliniciansofcolor.org. Lisa at cliniciansofcolor.org. My practice email is very long, so that's an easy one
Mm-hmm.
to remember. And reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns or want to get connected to services. Please reach out to me. Again, I had picked up the agenda of trying to decolonize just how we certify mental health professionals, and I would love the support. We need to hear from everybody about this because it's impacting our
Yes.
community the most.
Absolutely. Can we put that in the chat so people know how to reach her? Is Lisa at cliniciansofcolor.org.
Yep.
Again, we're going to put that in the chat so people will have the information. Lisa at cliniciansofcolor.org. Lisa, thank you so much for your time,
Thank
for your
you.
information, for your spirit, for all that you do. I know her personally. She's like my big sis. And when I tell you her heart is of gold, it really is. It really,
Thank you,
really
Shay.
is.
Thank you,
So
Shay.
I appreciate you as a human first. But also, just everything that you do and your contribution to the mental health community, your contribution to our community, period, and the fight that you do every day to make sure that our work continues. So thank you, and I appreciate you so much.
And thank you,
Thank you,
Shay.
Lisa.
Likewise, I'm blessed the day that I met you, and I appreciate that.
Oh, well, we're gonna get off because we ready to have some tears come down. So
It was a pleasure, Corey.
yes,
Thank you.
yes, but we will be having her back, y'all, because she
I'd
is
love to.
definitely she is the truth, and she has so much information that she can share with us to get your voices behind the cause, the movement, and all of that, the changes that we need to make. Anything else you want to say, Lisa?
I appreciate this platform, Shay,
Mhm.
100%. And just thank you for the time and allowing me to have this platform to be able to speak about things that are important to me and my communities.
You are
Awesome.
absolutely welcome. Thank you so much. Love you, girl.
All right. I love you too. All right. Bye, guys.
See you soon. Bye bye. Wow, that was an awesome conversation, a great
It
topic,
was.
and
Learned a lot.
very info. You learned a
I
lot.
learned a lot.
That's what we do at Rebirth. That's what we do, right? We here to renew, rebuild, and
We still,
restore.
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming.
So, if this conversation touched you in any way, what I will ask for you right now, I know a lot of you are tuning in on Facebook, but I am asking you to do me a favor. Please go to YouTube and subscribe to our channel. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. Please go to Rebirth the letter U podcast right now and subscribe. It is so important that we have your support because it helps us bring more content. It helps us bring more speakers and presenters to our platform to give you information that is definitely needed. Um Also, if you have not done so already, please get your ticket for the Rebirth meetup. This is something that you do not want to miss.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a great time. We're excited. Corey, can you talk to the fellas?
Yeah, I got him. I got him. I'm gonna bring him out. I'm gonna bring him out. You want me to tell him now?
Yes.
Oh, I just need to go like this and get them. Oh, fellas. Listen. There's too many of y'all that need to come out and have a good time. You're not doing anything. July 20th, right?
Yes,
July 20th. What
Corey.
was the time?
6 to 9, Corey.
Thank you. 6 to 9. I mean, I'll be there at 5. But at the end of the day, God, fellas, come out and support, right? All the females will be there anyway. So you might as well come out and have a good conversation.
Yeah.
And we need to network as well. And don't block yourself from your blessings. Let's have a good time and rebuild your network or engage your network or grow your network. So
absolutely.
See you July 20th.
Absolutely. Here's some of the things that you will experience. Engage in conversations with like-minded people, networking opportunities, a summer chill vibe, right? Me, Eli, Corey, the whole Rebirth team is going to be in the building. Also, our vendor for that night is the one and only Brielle Michelle, which is an amazing fragrance of candles, Black owned. She's doing an amazing job. She's going to be there. And also shout out to our sponsor also that is going to be having little gifts for you guys when you do come. What is our sponsor name? Do you remember? BayKL. Shout out to you, Bay. Yeah, shout out to you. So make sure you put that her website in the chat as well so people can check out her brand and everything that she has. So again, run over to rebirthyou.com, get your tickets. The tickets are only $20. Guys, we only have 10 tickets left. I'm not joking. We only have 10 tickets left. So if you miss out, hey, I told you.
Right.
I told you.
Right. 10 tickets are only for men. 10 tickets are only
right. So once again, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you tune in next week at 7 p.m. And actually, you'll be back on the couch with us.
I will.
Yes. You gonna move to the side?
Yeah, I got to even it out.
All right, guys. Check out this commercial from Rebirth You. I'll see you at the Rebirth meetup on July 20th. Have a great night.
Have a good one, y'all.